Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Wins of the Week. My name is David Hallett and I'm founder and CEO of Minerva Energy. At Minerva, we're dedicated to hopefully progressing the offshore wind and onshore wind industries through more effective operations and maintenance practices and building collaboration between owners, operators, OEMs to really push things forward to where we need to go, right? To get levelized cost of energy down and actually make our industry as viable financially as we possibly can. Wins of the Week is here to try and do that. What we're looking at is every week we focus on the O&M stories that have perhaps gone on within the industry, and we pick a number. Last week we had a fair few that we looked at of stories that we think, if they're known about more widespread, can have a positive effect on the industry, or at least bring things to people's attentions. This week we're going to focus in on one specific area, something that triggered me. I saw it, it was interesting, something that I've worked with in the past, and I think is perhaps going to become, well, it clearly is going to become a more at the forefront of what we're doing from an operations perspective, and I think a risk that needs to be considered when we're looking at risk portfolio and asset management, and that is actually blade failures in both the legacy and the new fleet of assets. We're seeing a steady increase in those, both onshore and offshore and across multiple turbine types. So let's jump in and have a look at what we've seen this week. So what really brought this to my attention and really made me think about bringing it as a subject to discuss on Wins of the Week is the failure that we saw this week at Björnberget wind farm in Sweden, onshore wind farm, 52, Siemens Gamesa 5.8, so the 5X platform. They've just seen last week another catastrophic blade failure that was resulted in the rest of the assets at the wind farm being shut down whilst an investigation is conducted. This, interestingly, isn't the first blade failure they've had at this site with this turbine type. They had exactly the same happen back in November, early part of November, but it is fairly well known that the 5X has issues with the blade construction itself, the manufacturing, and also the blade bearing, and most of it goes back to manufacturing defects in perhaps the quality control side of things or the methods that we use in the factory. Siemens have announced that they think that perhaps 15 to 30% of the 800 turbines that they've actually installed of this turbine type at the moment could be affected by this issue. And they've actually put aside 1.6 billion euros to address it over time. Now, that's concerning, clearly. 800 of these turbines installed across the world. Massive capex risk there in terms of blade replacements. Clearly, it's an onshore asset, significantly less than offshore, but again, something that we don't need in the industry. But I think it's really important to acknowledge and discuss, and that's what we're going to do now, that this isn't just an SGRE problem. This is across the industry. It's across the turbine manufacturers. I've seen it myself on Vestas turbines. It's happening on Nordex turbines currently. GE of Rona have got their own issues with blades on both Vineyard Wind Farm and Dogger Bank. So. If we just look at news breaking in the last week, Nordex have had a blade failure at McIntyre Wind Farm in southwestern Queensland in Australia. Happened back in December. Again, a completely different location. It's a global problem, but Nordex are seeing this issue as well. Another Siemens Gamesa turbine at Odal Wind Farm in Norway that failed beginning of last year. Again, 71 metre blade, catastrophic failure. 34 turbines were stopped during the investigation. It's not an uncommon thing, ladies and gents. This was the one that we just talked about there. I believe V164 is that, V112, I'm not 100% sure. Vestas turbine, Biglow Canyon Wind Farm in the States, in Nantucket. So, what is it? What's going on? If we look at even, it reminds me now of a blade bearing failure that was seen at one of the UK wind farms operating the Siemens Gamesa 5 megawatt, so which was the Senvion 5 megawatt turbine, which was the repower 5 megawatt turbine. Senvion are seeing issues across their a lot of their portfolio with blade bearing failures, with fatigue in the outer race, which causes a catastrophic failure of the bearing. and they cause significant downtime. Okay, and they're clearly expensive main component exchange processes to repair. I think if we just let's kind of sum up from sort of platform type by platform type initially. So Siemens Gamesa, we had the Odal Wind Farm. We've got the two in Sweden that we talked about this week. Significant losses expected to Siemens Gamesa whilst they rectify this issue. Vestas, myself personally, I've got personal experience on the V90, so the carbon spar blades having issues with catastrophic failure. Vestas have even seen turbines where 3 blades have failed catastrophically concurrently all at the same time. And when we look at the GE Verona, again, as we said before, issues at Vineyard, issues at Dogger Bank with both quality control of the manufacturing process and also other things that have yet to come out in terms of an investigation. But hopefully we'll see all of those as they come out. If we look at sort of the main failure modes that are kind of leading to this, it's things like poor bonding. Okay, so the poor use of adhesives and the poor layup of the adhesive during the manufacturing process. It's things like delamination during operation. Okay, internal inspection is quite a difficult thing to do when we're looking at blade maintenance. We can do, optical inspection via drone, via scope and camera, via the other innovative methods that are coming around today. But looking really within the blade material is quite difficult. You're relying upon ultrasound during the manufacturing process. They're using thermal imagery now, and then perhaps rovers down the inside of the blade. One of the areas that the industry needs to look at is more widespread thermal investigation, I think. So IR inspection of wind turbines. Funnily enough, that's something that we actually offer at Minerva. It's not an ad. That's not why we're looking at this, but it's something that, because of the stuff that I've done in the past, has interested me, and I think that is an area where we need to push and start to explore more. Another area that concerns me is LPS inspection and LPS damage. So we all know how many lightning strikes a turbine is likely to see annually. It's a significant number. LPS is perhaps something that we in the industry haven't investigated from a maintenance perspective perhaps as well as we should have done on both onshore and offshore assets. If we are seeing issues with poor bonding, with delamination, with perhaps water ingress, with oil getting into blades, that's been seen a lot on Vestas turbines on the older platforms. It doesn't take many lightning strikes to find an area of weakness and again lead you towards perhaps a category 5 or a catastrophic failure of a blade. And again, we're in this same loop of requiring main component exchanges, legacy fleet, perhaps there aren't that many blades available in the market, new turbines with the pipelines that are in place, availability of supply chain might be difficult as well. I think it needs to be something that gets onto the asset management roadmap a little bit more than it currently is. There needs to be more attention given to blade life, blade inspection, more deeper blade inspection, as I say, things like ultrasound, tap tests, things like thermal, internal rovers, all of these new innovative methods of blade inspection need to start to be used. And I think, again, it comes down to this owners, operators, OEMs talking to each other. Really stop hiding things. Start telling people what the problems are. Start sharing that information so that collectively, as an industry, we can fix this problem together, or at least be aware of it, or at least start to plan the costs in going forward so that we can start to be proactive in the replacement of assets. If we can find issues where we have bonding failures or where we have delamination occurring or we have significant LPS, it makes sense to plan in replacements before you get a catastrophic failure. If you've got wind farms that are closely located and you can perhaps share the cost of a jack-up barge, you can share the cost of crane and equipment, you can bring a specific single team in to do one wind farm and then move on to the next, even if they are across operators. I think this is the type of collaboration that the industry needs to start looking at with these major failure and these failure modes that we're seeing. So the news this week is that Siemens on the Siemens Gamesa 5 megawatt platform on the 5X have seen another failure at Björnberget wind farm, but it isn't isolated. All of the OEMs are seeing it in some form or another. I personally believe it is going to become a bigger issue. It is a growing issue, and we're perhaps even only seeing the tip of the iceberg. and that it warrants more investigation, more investment, because the minor upfront spend that we use now in terms of understanding the status quo of where we're at is significantly better than the other side, which is, vast numbers of main component exchange, unplanned main component exchanges, which are extremely costly to all of the assets and the owners and operators that are running wind farms. So yeah, slightly different this week, really focusing on one story. It's been a quiet week. It's a quiet time of the year from an O&M perspective, as it should be. Turbines should be running, should be spinning, should be producing. As we get into the summer months, I'm sure that we'll have more in terms of innovation, successes, incidents that are going on that we could share information on. But this is an important matter, and I think was worthy of some specific time to itself. So I'll put the links up to the bits and pieces that we've gone through today. They'll be in the description below. If you like it, please, again, follow, comment, do whatever you want to do. But we'll see you again next week. We'll see what's going on in O&M in the next 7 days. Have a safe one. Take care. Bye-bye.